This is lesson 6.4, absolute value, from chapter 6. Absolute value means how far something is on the number line from 0. That's all we are looking at. So let's say that I place or I graph at 6, positive 6 on the number line. That means this 6 is 6 steps away, or the distance between the 6 and 0 is 6. Similarly, I can place another dot at -4 on the number line, and this shows that the distance between this 0, or between the 0 on the number line, and this -4 is 4 again. So when you notice, this distance is always going to be a positive number, because we are talking in terms of distance, and distance is never negative. We talked about this in class. So absolute value can be defined as the distance between a number and 0 on the number line. Okay. And the way it's written is, just like we have symbols, the way it's written is with these two kind of lines. Make sure that it looks nice and long. For example, especially when you have numbers or any number, make sure that it doesn't look like a 1. So you would write the absolute value of 2 that way, of a -5 that way. So this is the symbol for absolute value. All right, the absolute value of any number can never be a negative. Can never be a negative, because as we saw up here, it's the distance from 0, and when we're talking about distance, we're just talking how many steps this way or this way, and distance is never negative. Okay, let's go ahead and find the absolute value of some of these problems. Right. Finding the absolute value of 4, which is written as this. So the absolute value of 4 is 4. That means that this number is right here, this positive 4 is here, and what's the absolute value? What's the distance between the 0 and 4? It's 4. In this case, what's the absolute value of a -6? So if you look here, that's how we write it. So that's where the -6 is. What's the absolute value? What's the distance between that 0? What's the distance between that the 0 and the 6? It is 6. So the absolute value of -6 is a positive 6. Similarly, the absolute value of a -2.8 is 2.8. Absolute value of -3 and 4/5 is 3 and 4/5. So one thing you need to remember is, whenever you see the absolute value, it always has to be a positive value, because again we are talking the distance from 0. So -3 4/5 is 3 and 4/5 steps away from 0. Let's go to the next one, which is comparing values. We have to complete the statement using greater than, less than, or equal to. So let's go ahead and compare the absolute value of -10 and 4. So when we do this, when you are doing these problems, I want you to first figure out the absolute value of the given number. The absolute value of -10 is 10, and the other number is just a plain old 4. So which one is a greater value? 10 has a greater value. So when you write this, you rewrite it as absolute value of 10 is greater than 4. Again, remember, it's not a -10, it's the absolute value of a -10. That means if I had a number line like this, and then I went up, I'm going to go up by 2's. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. This side I'm going to go -2, -4, -6, -8, -10. I'm going to plot it. The absolute value, or 4 is a 4, which is going to be right here. But then when you plot the absolute value of negative 10, it becomes here, and so we know on the right side of 0, the farther it is from 0, the greater the value, so 10 has a greater value than 4. Let's look at the next one. Again, remember, rewrite the absolute value and then check. This is just a 10, that's why I'm just writing it that way. Alright, absolute value of 9, 9 is less, so the absolute value of 9 is less than 10. Let's move on here. This is still a 3.4 because it has no absolute value, it's just a plain old number. In this case though, it's the absolute value of a negative 3.4, so it is a positive 3.4. They are both equal. Let's take a look at here, this one. This is the absolute value of negative 2, and the absolute value of negative 2 is 2, whereas this number is a plain old negative 1. It's just an integer. Which one has a greater value? 2 has a greater value than 1. So the absolute value of negative 2 is greater than negative 1. Okay, let's go ahead and finish the last part of this, ordering the values from least to greatest. If you notice, you have few different numbers. You have integers, you have a 0, you have a negative 5, but you also have the absolute values given here popped in there. So like I've said before, always rewrite the numbers, rewrite using the absolute value of the numbers if there are any, and then place them least to greatest. That's going to be easier for you. So I'm going to rewrite this. This is just a plain old 0. This is a negative 5. Now the absolute value of negative 6 is a positive 6. Absolute value of negative 2 is a positive 2, and that's a 4. Now we know how to order this. First, negative 5 because that's the least. Now it's 0. Then the value is 2. But look, the number given in the original problem is the absolute value of negative 2. So I'm going to rewrite it as the absolute value of negative 2. Then the absolute value, then just 4. And last is the absolute value of 6. So this is how we solve the problem. First write it out just like this, getting the absolute values of the numbers, and then rewrite them this way. Let's try one more and see. I'm going to rewrite this. Absolute value of negative 12 is 12. This is just a plain old negative 21, so I'm going to leave it that way. This is the absolute value of 25, which is 25. This is the absolute value of negative 31, which is a positive 31. It's a plain old negative 14, and this is just 33. So let's go ahead and write them in order. In this, I know that negative 21 is least value, so write negative 21. Negative 14 is my next least number. That's what I write. So I'm done with this, I'm done with this. What's my next number? 12. Good. But it's not a plain on 12 given in the actual problem. It's given as the absolute value of 12. Write it. Again, notice that when I write the symbol, I make sure that the line is bigger than the actual number inside. Be very careful with that. And then after 12, the next number is 25. In this case, they've said the absolute value of 25, and then the absolute value of a negative 31, and the last number is 33. Again, just this crossing out is to just make sure that I have all the numbers in. That's all the reason. Okay, go ahead and finish up the rest on your own, and I'll see you next class.